1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey folks, Sam Jacobs. Welcome to the Sales Hacker Podcast. Today, we've got Zvi Guterman on the show, the founder and CEO of a company called CloudShare. And this is a really interesting conversation because Zvi raised a lot of money many years ago. And I think 30 million. The last time he raised money was 2011. The company is now profitable. He hasn't raised money since. And in fact, he bought out his shareholders. And that's because there was a board level disagreement about how he was running the company, and he decided to go his own way. And I think it's a really inspiring story, in addition to the fact that he talks about being a product-driven founder, a product-led founder, and how he came to appreciate the beauty of go-to-market sales and learn to appreciate what we do as salespeople and how to explain value. And I think the final thing is learning how to put the customer at the center, which a lot of product-driven founders just don't get. You know, they're oftentimes more loyal to sort of the internal team and focused on protecting the engineers than they are listening to their customers and doing what their customers request. And I found this conversation with Zvi very refreshing. In addition, it's his Israeli accent's always beautiful to listen to, so that's always nice. Now we've got two sponsors on the show before we get to the interview with Zvi. The first is Vidyard. Email isn't dead, but my lord, is it boring. Add video to your emails to stand out in the inbox for free with Vidyard. Vidyard helps you easily record, send, and track who is viewing your video content in 3 simple steps. First, easily record your screen or your cell phone camera. Next, share your videos and emails, just a few clicks. Finally, see when someone watches your videos. Vidyard will let you know who clicked play and how much they watched. Get Vidyard for free by visiting vidyard.com/saleshacker. Our second sponsor is Outreach. That's outreach.io, the leading sales engagement platform. Outreach supports sales reps by enabling them to humanize communications at scale, from automating the soul-sucking manual work that eats up selling time to providing action-oriented tips on what communications are working best. Outreach has your back. Thank you for listening. Let us listen to my interview with Zvi Guterman, the CEO of CloudShare. Hi, everybody. It's Sam Jacobs. Welcome to the Sales Hacker Podcast. Today, we are excited to have Zvi Guterman. And Zvi is the founder and CEO of CloudShare, which is a leading provider of specialized cloud environments. From software to cybersecurity, CloudShare enables enterprises to replicate complex on-prem IT environments in the cloud for powerful sales demos and proof of concepts, virtual training, sandboxing, and support. Customers include such names as Palo Alto Networks, Atlassian, ForgeRock, Sophos, Dell, and Fortinet. And Zvi's got leadership experience across a wide range of organizations, as varied as fledgling startups to large national military organizations. He co-founded and served as CTO of Sofend, an endpoint security solution acquired by Wave Systems. He's also a board member and mentor at Clika, a big data platform for AdWords optimization acquired by Priceline many years ago. Zvi, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sam. Excited to be here, and thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We're excited to have you. So you are the founder and CEO of CloudShare, and I just read the description, but it's always important, particularly since you're the founder and it's your vision. Walk us through what is CloudShare. Give us your personal summary of what the company does.
Sure. So CloudShare, we're trying to solve the problem of working with IT environments. And the cloud is a huge revolution, right? It's allowed us to have and enjoy utility computing, but that's only the first step. And it allows you to consume virtual machines and so on. But when we take it to business users, such as sales professionals, sales engineers, training professionals, and so on, they are less interested in the technical element of a virtual machine or memory and disk. We are more interested as business professionals in the training sessions that I'm going to run tomorrow, or a demo, or a POC. And our goal in CloudShare is to provide these different workflows to the business professionals, enjoying the cloud without necessarily all the technical elements behind it. And that's what we do at CloudShare.
How did you come up with the idea for this company?
I just suffered from the problem myself. as always, I was, again, started on the technology side. We were running labs again and again, and I found myself paying quite a heavy price of IT administration, where my goal, at the time it was QA, but again, the same concept for sales enablement or for training, was to focus on the business case itself versus the technical limitation. And I was hoping that I can actually find such a service. And I was looking, and I didn't even think about the word cloud or SaaS or whatever. And I was just looking for something to automate all these different workflows. And when I couldn't find one, I decided, okay, let's build one.
And so the target customer, it sounds to me, but I could be wrong, but certainly when I was listing off the customers, these are enterprises, maybe large enterprises that are accustomed, maybe they're migrating to the cloud now, but it's still a laborious process. And they're evaluating an enterprise-wide software solution, and before they deploy it enterprise-wide, they need some kind of testing environment, POC environment, to evaluate the quality of the vendor that they're evaluating. In the context of that, they need something like CloudShare so they can easily set up a cloud-based environment to run the POC, to deploy the software, and figure out if it works for that organization. Did I summarize it okay?
Yes, perfect. You did it very well, Sam. And we actually serve both sides. So on one hand, we work with the largest software vendors of the world, allowing them to provide their team, their channel, and their customers and IT environments for the demo, POC, channel, again, training sessions, supports, and so on. And we also allow the enterprise and even system integrators to come and work in CloudShare in a simple way and use the different IT environments they may need.
So tell us about, how old is the company? Give us a rough range in terms of like how big it is. Just give us, help us contextualize. Is it one person organization? Is it 200 people? Is it 1,000 people? Tell us a little bit about it from a sizing perspective.
Sure. I started the company over 10 years ago. We raised over $30 million from some of the best VCs in the world, like Sequoia, Globespan, Charles River. We are almost with 50 employees today. R&D in Tel Aviv, Israel. The headquarters is here in San Francisco, California. And we still have additional team, of course, in Europe, Asia, and other locations in the US. We're already profitable in the last 4, maybe 5 years, growing nicely, over 50% year over year. Hundreds of customers being used by thousands of users in over 100 countries around the world.
That's amazing. And is it right that your last funding round was 2011?
Yes.
That's great. So to your point, that means that you've either been something's going right. But you're certainly cash flow break even. You're not dipping into it or somehow, because it's been 8 years, almost 9 years. That's fantastic. How did we get to this point? Tell us a little bit about your origin story, your background. Obviously, it sounds to me like you're from Israel originally. Do I have that correct?
Yes, you got the accent right. And so I started on the technology side. I actually have a PhD in computer science and math, working on cryptanalysis, breaking ciphers. And the last 25 years, I've been in the startup world, starting from small organizations up to very large R&D organization. And like many others, I transitioned and I found myself initially starting from the technology, getting excited about the value that we bring, the problem that we solved, that later on translate into how can it actually influence the business. That led me eventually to say, okay, I want to lead the boat. I want to take the CEO seat. And I found that I really love that. I love the strategy. I love the working on the HR challenges and of course, even raising money.
You are, many years ago, you were the classic kind of product-driven technologist founder in some way. And now you have years of experience. You've been doing this for 10 years, to your point, running go-to-market organizations. What initially was the biggest surprise to you about sort of sales and leading sales teams that you didn't anticipate as a technologist originally?
Sure. And that's also, again, I should say that was part of my, I think, lesson learned and moving more to the business side. I remember initially thinking in a naive way that technology can win everything. I was so proud in my technology, and I remember some of my first visits with C-level executives as potential customers, and they asking us about like our reporting system. And I was kind of super proud in our technology, and I said, hey, why do you care so much about the reporting? My core product is so powerful. And the CIO kept saying, no, I'm really interested in the reporting. And that was, and of course, we lost the deal. And I learned the hard way that if someone cares more about the reporting, we should comply. And that was just one example. I remember another painful incident that we were trying to win a deal. And again, technology, we thought that we had a superior technology that was more powerful and had more functionality. But I was asked, hey, how about your integration with X or Y? And he said, no, we don't have that yet. And the customer said, okay, if you don't have that, we won't have another new product standalone. We need one management solution, and you guys have to integrate with that. And again, we lost the deal, and that was a very painful experience. That, again, looking back, it was important in my understanding that, again, core technology by itself, a great algorithm, is not enough. And you need, of course, the entire picture in order to win deals.
How did you go about developing a framework for getting the entire picture?
So one, I'm fortunate, and I had great team members, and again, we did wonderful hires, and I brought the right people that already did that before that. Again, as a first-time CEO, that was very, very helpful, and we found the right value that was critical to customers, and we I think the one thing that we did right, again, is focusing on this value to customer, and that's for me key lesson, that you need to find the things that are really, really important to customers and nail them in the best way, different than anyone else that in your market. Once you do that, then of course you need the right salespeople, you need marketing campaigns, but I think that's key to winning all of these different aspects.
Is there a framework for figuring that out? I mean, is it just a matter of asking good questions and proper discovery, as we would say?
For me, I wasn't like following any method, again, from a well-known book or something, but it's just being fanatic about the customer, the feedback. As a SaaS vendor, of course, we're also able to monitor the data, and I've been in use cases where people were saying to us one thing, and actually we learned differently from the data. So sometimes the user wasn't able to articulate exactly what they need, but their actions, and again, as a SaaS vendor, I think that's one of the advantages, is show us again more. And by the way, I think it's, and talking about sales, it's also a wonderful indication on the sales side, of course, that you have the entire engagement in your platform. And we definitely are able and fortunate to use it on a daily basis.
Is it just a function of looking at the data, getting customer feedback? Because one of the things that you've said, which is a corollary to being obsessive about the customers, be laser focused on value, everything else is secondary. Is there a framework that you need to do that? How do you separate signal from noise when it comes to customer feedback so that you can focus and prioritize?
Well, I think that's a super critical question. And one, you need to decide, is the feedback I'm getting right now is represent the specific customer that I'm talking with and the different way they think about it, or is it the entire market? Maybe I'll give you one example that we see as a trend, and I think it's probably clear to most of our listeners, is on-demand pricing. I think what happened in SaaS definitely over the last 10 years is that we witnessed great pressure towards on-demand pricing that allows you to start easily and experience a product versus some long complex POCs that used to be the picture years ago. And that's definitely a trend that, again, we witness, and we, of course, happy to support. And you should allow your customers to enjoy that. And I of course, recommend that to any software vendor.
Do you charge for your POCs? Or do you recommend charging for them?
So we actually, most of our customers just start with either a large commitment. If they know, if they are in the sales process, then they are ready to make a commitment. And you mentioned some of our largest customers. So usually these companies are coming when they are ready to make a decision. They want to a longer commitment. It's a big step for them. They're going to onboard hundreds of, if not thousands of people to the platform. It's going to take more than a quarter. And then usually they are ready to make a big investment again in the 6 and sometimes 7-digit commitment. So for these customers, usually they are asking for a POC. Usually with us, it's paid because it's a big commitment. And of course, later on, we are able to discount it, part of a larger deal and so on. For smaller customers and growing companies, very often we find them in a situation that when they are not so confident about what they are ready to do, and they want to start small, and then we just allow them to start on demand. And so usually we don't need a free POC, we just let them start with an on-demand pricing, which of course is a little bit more expensive, but allow them the full flexibility. So someone will go for a month, and usually they convert later on to a longer commitment that provide them better terms.
There's lots of salespeople that are listening right now, and they're trying to sell you things, Zvi. What do you think is the best, when you purchase things for your business, do you ever think about how you've made that purchasing decision? And I'll give you are there specific preferred ways that you prefer to be communicated with? Do you prefer LinkedIn, email, text message, phone? It's not that we're all going to try and sell you something right away. It's more trying to get into the mind of a CEO. Don't worry. We're not asking for your phone number. It's more that there's people listening saying, okay, this is a person that might buy my thing one day. What is the best way to get to both capture their attention and their imagination so that I can have some space to have a discussion about their problems?
Yeah, sure. Sam, first I should say you scare me a little bit, because with the hundreds of thousands of salespeople listening to your podcast,
millions.
I'm starting to get worried that I'm going to be a target. But being serious, I like, again, the salespeople that are smart about how they interact with the other side and trying to solve my problem. And if I'm looking for a new dashboard tool or a new financial tool, I really appreciate when someone is asking me, okay, what problem are you trying to solve? What's your target? And really try to solve my problem. As a communication method, I'm fine with any. Again, we live in a modern world where sometimes interesting leads are coming from LinkedIn, sometimes it's email, sometimes again we fill in a form, and sometimes I go sometimes just for a conference. Again, if there's a relevant conference in town, and I'll find, I'm really, of course, curious to learn about new technologies that allows us to move faster. And the faster you can show me value and not waste my time and your time, the best value you can get from me.
Show you value. Does that translate? Are you saying that you want to see a demo as quickly as possible?
Not necessarily. Sometimes it's maybe a demo of how to operate the tool. Sometimes it's an example of a report. Sometimes it's a good explanation. And maybe let me give you an example. A tool I was recently started to adopt. Again, we all use email, and I got excited about Superhuman. I'm not sure if you're familiar. It's an
Everyone's
email
familiar with Superhuman.
Yeah. Okay. Are you using?
No, but it's the darling of the startup scene right now, and apparently, what does he say? Raul says that they only have 10 engineers total in the company. So A capital efficient business as well.
So here's an again, and I'm promoting another company, and and I think they earn it in a good way. So their pitch is actually super simple, right? You spend so much time on email. How about we allow you to be more efficient and save you time on a monthly basis? And they even take it a step further and they say, you know what, we're so proud of it, we're going to charge you for that. Like it's counterintuitive, right? You have so many open source, free email clients, and someone is saying, no, I'm going to charge $30 per month or something like that for your email subscription, but in return, I'm going to save time to you. And so that was the pitch I got. And I said to myself, if they save at least an hour a month for me, right, my time worth more than $30 an hour, that's an easy sell. And actually, again, and trying was super simple. And a month later, I was sold. And I estimate right now that the ROI for me is probably more than 5, maybe 10 hours a month of efficiency. And that's worth a lot for me.
What, while we're on this topic, just because I'm not a customer yet, but I've got one on the phone, what are the specific activities that it saved you time on? Like, what is the special sauce that makes it so easy?
Yeah, we're helping them, promoting them, but yeah,
okay. It's an authentic conversation.
Yeah, they earn it in a good way. It's just make you super efficient handling your email. So me, like I guess many of our listeners, I need to read and take action on at least 300 emails on a daily basis. These are emails that I need to go over and sort them out and decide if I'm delegating, if I'm deleting, if I'm answering. And Superhuman is very helpful in doing that in an efficient way.
Okay, fair enough. You one of the things we'll get more specific later. One of the things you've talked about, and this is sort of relating back to this premise of showing value. You said there's a value in giving prospects hands-on control during presentations and leave behind demos. Tell us what you mean by that, and sort of give it. I mean, you talked about Superhuman, but just walk us through what that means for you.
Sure. So many of the CloudShare customers are using us for demonstrating their own solutions. So we mentioned someone like Palo Alto Networks that are using us for their demos. So you early on in a dialogue, in a classical marketing sales dialogue, you are doing this early qualification. Maybe you showed the prospect some collateral, or the prospect was in a webinar, and then you cross some level of interest. Of course, you maybe lost some percentage of your audience, but you get to the next level. And many times, as we mentioned, people want some hands-on and want to get a sense of, okay, your firewall or your database or your management solution, how come it's better? Show me, give me some hands-on demo on your solution. And CloudShare allows you to do that in the cloud in a super easy way, the same way that we would use a Zoom session. So instead of just looking at a presentation or a video with your prospect, you can go actually collaborate together on the real system in live. And you get a private, dedicated, secure copy for that demo, which can be like 45 minutes or whatever duration you decide. And after that, of course, as we think about the sales pipeline and we progress later on, maybe we need a POC. You're saying, okay, that management screen looks actually really valuable, and I can see why it can make sense for me as a health organization, and I'm interested in that product. I want to get my own data. I'm worried maybe that, again, and that's later on in the process, that I want to get a better sense if it's working for me. And then you can do the same POC in a super efficient way. You don't need to orchestrate anything. You just click of a mouse and you get the 2 weeks or 10 days or whatever of the same demo environment that you just started into a POC that the prospect can get hands-on in their own time zone remotely using CloudShare. And by doing so, we actually allow sales organization to really expand their pipeline in a wonderful way, to open and widen the number of leads and later on opportunities in a better way, also in a cost-effective way. So you can control how much you spend, and you can say, okay, I see that leads in that stage or opportunities in that early stage, I should only give them 30 minutes, or is the 45 minutes is helpful? And you can be really analytics. And maybe, and again, for our listeners, it's a good point to mention. One of my observations, again, working with many sales organizations over the recent years, is that people are becoming much more analytic about how we run the sales organization, right? We see people that are, if you are being able to be more analytic, you take better decisions, you're more effective, and we all spend so much money on the sales organization. It's maybe one of your most expensive part of your company.
It makes a lot of sense. I want to change topics really quickly because you have experience running sales teams, and we've been talking about sort of the customer journey essentially. But I also want to talk about being a CEO. And one of the things that jumped out at me when I was reading your bio is I mentioned it at the outset, but you haven't raised money since 2011, and you are, and perhaps not surprisingly and relatedly, you are a serial entrepreneur. So this is not your first time doing this. I would imagine those things are related, but what is your perspective on, there's a world out there that is sort of telling, and particularly because, the capital environment, negative interest rates, nearly infinite capital available, that's telling entrepreneurs and founders and companies that they need to raise a tremendous amount of money and burn it very quickly. You're taking a different approach. Walk us through your philosophy.
Sure. As you mentioned, I think the market right now making it really easy for entrepreneurs to raise more and more money. And we also witnessed, definitely in the last 10 years, more accelerators opening, and actually it makes starting a company, technology company, much easier, which is great. But as we talked earlier, I think we should all remember your number one goal is to approach the customer, right? Is to work with customers, bring value to customers, and translate it, again, definitely on B2B, right? Is to translate into revenue. So I encourage first-time CEOs, entrepreneurs, first look at their plan and say, hey, can I be profitable? Again, I think we witnessed many great companies that actually didn't even raise money and organically made it to success. And the first question I would ask an entrepreneur, try to build a plan. Can you, especially in software, right? If you're a hardware company, it's usually very expensive just to begin with. But in software, many times you just can be 2 people or 3 people. Maybe you don't need a lot of money. Try to build this path into the value that you'll get from your customers, how you get paid. It will also help you get a better validation for your entire concept, and is your venture in the right idea. You want to be in a place where people are actually happy to pay you, right? Usually, again, CloudShare, we have wonderful margin, and that's thanks to the fact that if someone like a VP of sales or VP of training get into our platform, they get addicted and they see amazing value and a great ROI, right? In B2B, many times we want an ROI of 10x, right? We want to allow someone to say, yes, I'm paying them $1 million. That may sound a lot, but I'm getting $10 million out of it. So that's where you want to be. And I encourage entrepreneurs to go that way, and that will allow them also a lot of flexibility to control their own destiny, because investors, they all want, of course, success, but they have different timelines, they have different thinking, and if you control your own destiny, that's the best you can do. Like I'll give another example. You may decide that your initial market is Brazil. Why? Because you thought about something that maybe is a good start in Brazil. Not many investors will be happy about that, because again, most of the startups didn't start in Brazil. So it will be hard for someone to understand, and even more difficult if you start in Brazil and it doesn't work out, and then you say, oh, I actually understand that maybe I need to move to Argentina. Getting a second chance if you failed on the first one will make it even harder. But maybe that's the right path for you. And I do encourage entrepreneurs, and again, I learned it the hard way. I made my mistakes, to focus on the customer, try to see if you can do without money. If you need money, of course, and if you have a right reason, and if you want to accelerate faster, okay, that's a wonderful reason maybe to raise money. You already are in a place that you have a product market fit, and you want to press the pedal. That's the right way to do that. Maybe again, you want to buy some of your competitors in a later stage. That's a good reason to raise money, but don't pick it as the first path because it's the easiest one. That's my input.
Are your investors happy with you or impatient with you because you haven't raised money since 2011? And exactly to your point, you're profitable, so you probably retain a significant control of the company and probably don't need their input as much as they might want. Or maybe they're just so happy because CloudShare is going to have an outcome at some point. It's a profitable business. We don't have to worry about it.
So actually, our story is that it didn't go so well, and we had our disagreements, and I was fortunate enough to be able to buy them out in my situation. Right now, we are without any external investor.
Wow.
So,
I didn't know that.
so that's the best. that's the happy end. Yeah. So we got to that point. As you can guess, again, it wasn't easy, and I'm not sure I would encourage every entrepreneur to go that way. But I guess any shareholder right now is very happy in CloudShare.
I'm glad to hear that. Last question before we wrap up, or a few more questions. But one of them is, you talked about mistakes that early stage founders make, and one of them that you've talked about is managing the board effectively. And you regularly see a lot of first-time CEOs not learn the right lesson. So talk to us about what you mean and what should the right lesson be.
Sure. And allow me maybe again connected to one of your previous questions about sales organizations, and we all learn about how we manage sales organizations, we build pipeline. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that is very common is that we usually super optimistic, right? We definitely as entrepreneurs, right? You don't see the risk. You're ready to jump from the cliff. You have this wonderful idea, and the market will love you. And you learn the hard way that you how to fly and how to provide your customers what they need. And I can share that in my case, our first year of sales, we did something like $500,000 in sales. That was according to our plan. It was great. Second year of sales, we were aiming to do 4x, and we were able to do that, and that went very well. I didn't realize, again, talking about mistakes, I didn't realize at that stage that it was still early stage, small numbers. I actually didn't build the marketing pipeline in a healthy way, and accordingly the sales pipeline was not healthy. And as a result, the following year I was trying to do 3x and go from 2 million to 6 million. It was a horrible, and I'm saying horrible, but it actually ended in doing 2x. So we did $4 million, but my board wasn't happy, and that's a horrible place to be, right? You actually doing quite well, you do 2x, and your board is not happy with you. And I do encourage, again, talking about entrepreneurs, first-time CEOs, to really be aware to the expectations that they are setting, building the right pipeline, and if needed or as needed, find the right mentor that will help them in these early stages.
How did that disappointment from the board manifest itself? Just were they trying to force the company to do things you didn't want to do? Were they trying to get rid of you? What was the practical output of their dissatisfaction?
Yeah, in my case, all of the above, which again, I think the short version is that I lost control of the board, and I think that's a very bad thing. That people are unhappy with you, they don't trust that you control the company in a good way, and then they start thinking of, should we change the market, should we change a CEO, and I got all of the above.
Wow.
and it was a journey again, and we brought a very seasoned CEO. I was open to that, and it was a disaster. Unfortunately, it was a disaster, and then we had to release him, and I got to be the CEO back again. But we wasted expensive time, and of course a lot of bad energy, unfortunately.
Well, I'm glad that you made it out on the other side. Zvi, we have a section at the end of the show where we like to pay it forward. We like to know who are the people that have influenced you or that you hold in very high regard that you want us to know about. So who are some of those folks? It could be a founder, it could be a VP of sales, but who are some of the folks that you think are really brilliant that we should know about?
Sure. So first, I'm very proud of my team, my executive team here in the States and in Israel. Our VP of Sales, Sheila Aroni, is with me almost from day one, and she's an amazing mentor for me. Talking about sales, and Sheila started her career in GE, and later on moved to the high tech sector, and she was pivotal in our growth. Ani, our VP of marketing, is also amazing. As mentors for myself, I probably can mention two or three. One is Guy Sella, that unfortunately passed away last month, and was the CEO and founder of Solar Edge. It's a public company in Nasdaq that using the sun energy in a better way. And Guy was my boss early in my career, and one of the people that influenced my thinking in a very strong way, very unconventional leader. And when I started CloudShare, I wasn't sure and I wasn't confident if I should start another company after my first company. I was thinking, should I do that? Maybe I should do something else. And I remember the meeting, we had kind of a late night meeting in an airport, 11 p.m. I'm coming to him and saying, hey guys, should I start my company? And he takes his checkbook out and says, here's a check for $100,000 and you must start your own company. And I'm saying to him, hey, you know me, but we didn't talk what about valuation. And he said, no, just start the company. We'll solve that later.
Wow.
And unfortunately, again, we lost him last month for cancer. And today I have two mentors that are really helping me and worth mentioning their names. And both of them were CEO of public companies. And one of them is Every More, that today with Menlo Ventures, and the other one is Chemi Zucker, who is the former CEO of J2. And both of them were very helpful in my growth and helping us take CloudShare to the next step.
Wonderful. Zvi, thanks so much for being on the show. If there are folks out there that want to become customers or they want to work for you, are you okay if they reach out to you? And if so, what's the preferred method of communication?
Sure, would love that. We always look for additional talents, and of course, nothing better than customers. LinkedIn is probably the best way, and if they can mention the podcast, it would help me associate it. And of course, please do.
And it's can you tell us how to spell your name just for the listeners out there?
Sure. It's Zvi Guterman, and it's ZVI, and my last name is Guterman, Guterman.
Wonderful.
So Zvi Guterman at CloudShare, and you can find my profile on LinkedIn.
I'm sure. Zvi, thanks so much for being on the show. We'll talk to you on Friday for Friday Fundamentals.
Thank you very much, Sam.
Hey everybody, Sam Jacobs. You're listening to Sam's Corner. I enjoyed that conversation with Zvi Guterman because it's great to listen to somebody that's building a profitable business, that bought the business back from the investors, that's focused on the customer, and that empowers the team to do great things. And so a couple lessons from the conversation. The first is obvious, generic, and still relevant and important, which is put the customer at the center of the company. One of the things that early stage companies, product-led companies do is they assume that the product will sell itself. They also assume that people give a shit about them. That's always a faulty assumption. And they assume that they know what's best. All of those assumptions tend to be wrong. Unless you're a savant and you're a genius, they can be right. By the way, people are often mixing metaphors, applying Steve Jobs metaphors to B2B SaaS companies. Why is that wrong? Because Steve Jobs ran a B2C company. He ran a consumer products business, not a B2B company. So he doesn't solve business level problems. He created concepts and devices of which he was the customer himself. But if you're not the customer yourself, then you need to go listen to your customers. And that's why it's so critical that you put the customer at the center of the company. You listen to them, you hire salespeople that get that feedback, you bring that feedback and you create a feedback loop so that you can bring customer feedback back to the product organization and back to the company. That's really, really, really important. Also, Zvi believes passionately in sort of the concept of demonstrating value. So part of what CloudShare does is you can create demo environments where you can sort of create a leave behind demo. You create an instance where the customer themselves can do things on their own, manipulate things on their own, figure out how it works. And then at the end of it, if your product is as good as it is advertised, then they may become regular customers. Finally, we talked about, I just mentioned it at the outset of Sam's Corner, but really think about running your business from a perspective of profitability, not necessarily a perspective of just pure unadulterated growth. Lots of people are talking about that. You know, we see lessons in the news. We see companies like WeWork that have gone through a lot of difficulty recently because I think, I'm recording this in late October. SoftBank just bailed them out and they were going to run out of money next week, I think. Now, unfortunately, one of the things that happened is that the guy that started the company, who's a total fraud and a huckster, although he did create a good product, made $2 billion for turning a $47 billion valuation into an $8 billion valuation. So he destroyed almost $40 billion worth of enterprise and shareholder value. In exchange, he gets to become a billionaire, while a lot of people at WeWork are going to lose their jobs or have their options repriced such that they're completely out of the money. So that's a shitty story. Think about instead creating a business where equity is valuable because you're generating cash, and that cash is more than the cash you are outlaying to run the business. Sounds like a fairly simple concept, but people are only learning about it recently, it seems like. Just think about it. It doesn't mean that you don't want to grow, and if you have really great unit economics, it may make the most sense to burn capital. But profitability is what we are all ultimately striving for, unless the future is so bright that we never want to get there, because we always have to invest in the future because the future is better than the present. And companies like Amazon may be able to make that distinction. Although even Amazon, within certain businesses, is extremely profitable and cash flow generative. So at any rate, that's been Sam's Corner. Before we go, thanks to our sponsors, Vidyard. Email isn't dead, but it sure is boring. Check out how to use video for free within the context of your communication and make your email stand out in the inbox. With Vidyard, go to vidyard.com/saleshacker. And then our second sponsor, as you know, is Outreach, the leading sales engagement platform. If you want to reach out to me, you can. LinkedIn.com/the word in/Sam F. Jacobs. And I will talk to you next time.